Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Ninja Wealth Exchange Podcast, episode 2. Um, we're going to be talking about the going beyond opening doors and how we realtors create real wealth. Today, we're going to be pulling back the curtains on how realtors make money, what we actually do beyond just opening doors, and how we're building a business that goes way beyond chasing transactions. I have my partner here, Laura Vang, who's going to be answering some of the questions that we have. We're both realtors here. And so I think he's probably the more experienced one. So we're going to go ahead and ask him the questions so that we can understand how realtors get paid and how far their career potentials can actually go, as well as everything from creating the possibilities of creating a brokerage to investing and even more. So let's go ahead and just kick this. Well, first of all, let's welcome Laura. Laura, do you have anything to say?
Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for everybody to tune in tonight with us and join us. Let's get
Yeah.
started.
Sweet. Yeah. So how do realtors get paid and how do they really build wealth, Laura? Just from your perspective and what you've learned, how have you gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest mysteries, right? When you're working with an agent, right? And especially even before I became an agent, I was, working with another agent, right? As a client, as a customer, right? I never really knew how much they got paid, quite honestly. It was kind of a mystery. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. The seller's going to pay me. You don't have to pay me anything, right?" So a couple things have changed since then, right? Now we have to disclose how we get paid to clients. So now we know exactly, as a consumer, we know exactly how the real estate agent that we're working with is getting paid. And most of the time, right, it's the seller who is splitting some of their profit back to cover the buyer agent's commission, right? Because it is not free to work with a buyer agent, even if someone is telling you that it's free, it's not true, right? So
Mhm.
what usually happens is there's a percentage, right? Either a percentage or a flat fee, right? That your buyer agent is going to be charging you, right? And so I don't want to get in trouble. We're not supposed to share, talk about exact commission numbers, things like that, right? It's a rule. um, Anywhere from I don't know, 1% to 3%, whatever, 4%, whatever you want to put, right? We would make that percentage times the purchase price, right? So whatever the purchase price of that property is. So let's just say, for educational purposes only, average retail price of a home in my area is probably 300,000, right? So let's say you made 3% on this one particular deal, right? So 3% times 300K, you're going to make $9,000 gross commission, right? So that's pretty much how we get paid. And then again, it does come from the seller most of the time, right? And if the seller's refusing to pay, then you as a buyer, you might have to be prepared to pay the difference. So
Yeah. So I have a question on that. So when you receive your 3%, right? What portion of that do you actually get? And what portion of it actually goes back into your business? And what portion of it um, is actually something that you can actually use? Because we're building businesses here, right? So is there a way that you look at how you handle your business when it comes to how that commission split actually works so that our viewers can actually know, right? Like that that's like I think a portion of it we probably will have to pay taxes on it, right? So we don't get a W-2 where they split out everything, but instead we're commissioned. So how does that work when you're building your business?
yeah, definitely a great question, right? Because if you don't know as a client, you might be thinking, "Oh wow, they made that much just to sell me a house. That's a lot of money, right?"
Mhm,
um,
mhm,
but we don't, unfortunately, we don't get to keep it all, right? So of course, you just mentioned Uncle Sam is our silent partner, right? He's our
yeah.
silent business partner in everything we do, guys. So real estate agents, we are 1099, so meaning we're self-employed, right? Um, so we have to, but the cool part is that as a 1099 employee, you do, you do get majority of all your money pre-tax, right? up front, right? Um, so that's the cool part. So you can spend your money how you kind of want to, but to build your business, of course. And what we mean by that is to spend on lead gen, to spend on maybe a transaction coordinator or an assistant, right? Marketing, right? There's a lot of a lot of expenses that go into being a real estate agent, and as well as gas money, right? We drive around so much for clients, and a lot of the times, if a client doesn't buy a house, we're not getting paid anything, right? All of our
Mhm.
time that we spent with them, all the gas money, especially if you're driving a good distance to see homes, there's a lot of expenses here, right? And I've been with clients where it's taken first showing and we get the house. That's it. But I can tell you that's only happened 3 times out of the 100 plus transactions I've done. Um, right.
Yeah,
And
I find that
so
true too.
majority of clients, probably about two months average, 3 months to find a home, right? But then you do have the anomalies that take 6 months plus, right? The
Mhm,
longest I've had is
mhm.
2 years. Um,
Yeah.
and so, you can imagine that's a lot of the time that you're spending with them, gas, things like that. Um, so there is a significant portion of your commission that's going to go towards expenses. Taxes is probably 25%, right? Just to be safe. And you do have to set that aside so you pay Uncle Sam at the end of the year. Because if you don't have it set aside and you just spent everything and he's last to get paid, you might be in trouble, right? Um, Expenses, I mean, it's all how much you spend on your marketing, your business, things like that. But probably you want to spend at least maybe 30% or so, something like that. And then, maybe really at the end of the day, I mean, after all that stuff is done, your broker still takes a cut too. So
Mhm.
your broker also gets a cut. All right. So even so at EXP, we the brokers that we're with, it's a 20% split, right? So the company takes 20%. And there are a couple ways we can save on that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But there, even with 100% commission outfits, right, brokerages that are supposedly 100% commission, they're still getting their money, right? Some one way or another. So they're going to be called a transactional brokerage instead of a split model, right? So they're going to take a flat fee, and some of these fees can be $500, could be 1,000, right, per transaction, right? So they're still getting their cut as well through that. But yeah, that's kind of how it looks out to be.
Yeah, I do, I do agree with that. I know that we're with EXP and we have the 80/20 split, but I've been with the 100% brokerages. They also have fees, right? It's not just the commission split. There's also fees involved. And so thanks for going over that with everyone. So my next question is, with all these different things that you have to put into your business, right? As an agent, what are the success rates, and how do top producers or top agents actually stay in business?
Yeah. So, you might have heard that, okay, yeah, you can make potentially about $10,000 per home, right? All depends on the price range, things like that. Might sound great, but the reality in this business, it's a really high failure rate, right? So last year the stats was 50% of agents, right, didn't sell a single home or just
That's
one,
crazy.
right?
That's crazy.
It's insane. And the amount of realtors in the business, there's, according to NAR, I think there's 1.5 million, right? There's more realtors in America than there are homes for sale. Um, and 50% sold one or less homes last year. And then 75% sold five or less homes, right? So five or less. And so you're thinking, wow, okay. So even if you sold five and you made 10 grand each gross, and we're talking about gross commission here, that's 50K. 50K per year. That's not that great. That's not that amazing, right? You're
Mhm,
barely
mhm.
pushing, a little bit above probably what? Uh Low income, right? It used to be middle class, but the targets moved all right. So it is a challenging business, right? And if you think about it, if you only sell 5 homes the whole year, there's 12 months in a year, right? Um, that's that's not that good, right?
That's
Um,
rough. That's
it
rough,
is rough, right?
especially if
But
you have a family. That's super
yes,
tough.
right. If you got a family, you got food to put on the table, and mortgage due every month, right? And we get paid every 30 days in this business, right? Because it takes about 30 days to close a deal, right? From the time, and we're talking about from the time that you get under contract, right? So we're not even talking about all the time that we're spending running around with clients, right? And even if you get listings, those listings can sit for a month, maybe two, before they go under contract. Um, so it's not easy money. It takes time, right? And it's a process, right? And to build that business. So one thing you mentioned, obviously, I mean, it sounds real challenging, but and it is, but a lot of people, right? You either you're built for the business or you're not, right? And talking about like being an entrepreneur, right? Our business is tough, and there's not really anybody who's going to tell you exactly what to do. You're running your own business, even though you may be thinking that you're joining a brand, you're joining a brokerage, right? That you're an employee, right? This whole employee mindset, right? If you come from the W-2 world, it's a big change to go from W-2 to, oh, now I own my own business, right? In fact, a lot of agents that get into this business as, let me become a realtor to have a side hustle, right? To do this on the side, right? And a lot of times that side hustle mentality, it doesn't pan out because you're not putting in the business, you're not putting in the reps, you're not putting in the work, right? To get the results. And so that's why a lot of people end up leaving the business, right? And even a lot of full-time agents, they don't understand that they are running their own business, even if they're, with a major brokerage. They think they're still in that employee mindset, right? The brokerages don't give us any leads, right? That's quite the honest truth. Um, we're not getting any leads from the brokerage. And if you're an agent, you're brand new and you're thinking you're going to get leads somehow, if you do, that company is going to take 50% cut. Probably, right? That team
Yeah.
lead or whatever, they're taking 50% of your commission right away. So whatever's left for you at the end of the day, it's very small. But of course, it's the price of learning, it's the price of learning the business, things like that. But to be a seasoned agent, obviously, 25%, right? The top 20% of agents in the business are doing majority of the business. So the other 80, they're just kind of there, right? They're doing
Mhm.
that 1 to 5. The top 20 in the business are doing, you know, 5 plus, right? And so to build your business the correct way, you really have to understand how to market, how to build your brand, right? How to generate the business, right? And so you're talking things like a CRM, which is a what customer relationship management software, right? So that it can continuously touch on your clients, send them emails, send them listings, put it in front of their face, and say, hey, is this the right time for you now, right? Or did you know this, right? You're adding value to them, because people want to work with people they like and they trust, people who they think are the go-to, right? The expert in that business, right? Because the trust factor is huge, and especially in today's world where people are looking you up before they even meet you, right? They want to see that you're serious, that you're legit, that you know what you're talking about, right? And so a lot of this business starts off online before you even meet the client.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Recently, I read somewhere that some of the new agents thought that they could just go out there, they can get their license, and then they join a brokerage and they get leads handed to them, right? And
Mhm.
a lot of those people, they come in and they don't last very long because your first transaction, at least from my experience, right? Your first transaction might be like 6 months in, right? Yeah, you might have to actually wait 6 months in before you get that first paycheck to cover all of your expenses that you put in there from your schooling, your education, and so on. Um, I think it's a big deal. So, you gotta know that it's a self-employed business. You gotta learn how to generate your own leads, and I think that that's something that, is super important. So, I wanted to ask you, since you're an icon producer here at EXP, um what does it take to be a top producer? And, how do you find leads? How do you continue to, make your business run effectively? And how do you actually excel in this business?
Yeah. So, um, so I did achieve the Icon Production Award at EXP my second year, which is our top producer award. And my second year at EXP, I did about 40 plus transactions. And the first year I was with the EXP, I did about 18, which was still quite a lot. But and then the following year, um, I wasn't even really trying to icon, right? But it just so happened that I was able to do it. But one of the biggest things that, like you mentioned, I'll back up a little bit first here. When you first start in the industry, right, a lot of the times you do that first couple transactions, you are going to be working with your friends, your family, right? People that already know you and trust you, right? That's going to be the easiest thing. And then the next thing after that, you're going to have to learn how to build a business, because that's what I experienced, right? My first 2 years in the business, my first year in the business, I did it as a side hustle, right? I didn't take it seriously. I did close one deal, and it was for my friend who was ready to buy. And shout out to David. And he trusted me, brand new agent. And he's like, hey, man, you got your real estate agent license, right? You're an investor, you're an engineer, you're smart. Let's go buy a house for me. I was like, all right, let's go. So I appreciate him for being my guinea pig. Um,
Mhm.
we closed that one deal, covered all my fees and all that stuff. Didn't make anything the whole year, right? But it covered all my fees, my startup costs, right? But then after
Yeah.
that, right, my second year, third year, doing more business with the friends and family, the SOI they call it, right, sphere of influence. Thinking that all of a sudden, thinking I'm real bad, like, oh my god, now I'm doing like 10 transactions a year. I'm a great agent now. I'm a top producer, right? The ego starts coming out, and then like got the great idea. Hey, I should quit my job and go full time. Not such a great idea, because then I had no leads. I already worked most of my SOI, and I don't have that big of SOI. I only got like 30 people in my SOI, right? And so all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, where am I going to find the business, right? And
Hmm. Hmm.
so I did not lead gen, things like that, right? And I'm an engineer. I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people, right? You're not going to catch me out at a networking event, like work in the room. Like, you want to buy a house? No, I'm not doing that, right? Um, so, at the time, 2018, Reels Shorts was really big in the internet, right? The whole thing, everybody was talking about video marketing, video content marketing, and that was the rage, right? So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be the cold caller. I hate getting spam calls from people. I hate picking up those calls. Why would I want to do that same thing to other people? Right. So I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be the door knocker, like walking neighborhoods, knocking on doors. I did not want to do that. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna give this social media thing, this whole video content thing a try. Right. That's where I'm going to put my efforts in. And a couple of reasons for that too is because once you create, so I decided to do video content marketing on Facebook, social media, and YouTube. And the thing is, once you create that content, it is out there forever. It's evergreen content. Yes, it does take a long time to create, but it's out there existing forever. Somebody can look it up later, right? If someone in your area is like, hey, how do I buy a house in Minnesota? Your video is going to pop up on Google. Google, right? The number one internet site on the internet right now is YouTube. Number two is Google, right?
Wow,
And
that's crazy.
so if you search something on Google, Google is going to give you a YouTube result. And if your video is on YouTube and it's going to show up on Google, and somebody wants to buy a house like tomorrow, whose video are they going to watch? They're going to watch a video and they're going to go read a blog, right? Um, and so once they see you, right, they watch your video and you know what you're talking about. It sounds like you do, right? And you're an expert. You talk about the neighborhood and everything that they're interested in. And then they watch the next video and the next video. They start binge watching. They go down a rabbit hole of your channel. They know you. They trust you. They're ready to work. They're ready to do something, take action, right? They're going to call you, right? And that's where I get a lot of my business from, is through social media, through YouTube, things like that. Um, that's what I focus on. So I have YouTube channel, things like that. That's how I build my business. Um, I lead gen for free. right? It's free to publish content on Facebook. It's free to publish content on YouTube. Um, I don't buy ads. I don't buy leads from like Zillow or things like that, realtor.com. Those type of leads, I've other agents I've talked to have done it, where, if a buyer visits the realtor.com or the Zillow page, they call the Zillow number or whatever, right? And all of a sudden they transfer that customer to a random agent that's paying to get those leads. Majority of those buyers that are calling are junk leads, right? Unqualified,
Mhm.
right? They don't even have a pre-approval. They just want you to go open the door so they can look at it, right? Um, and I've experienced it, right? I've done a couple showings for agents who pay for those type of leads, and majority of the time they may never come back to you after that initial showing, you know. So so that's a challenge too, and it's not cheap to be a Zillow agent, right? You're paying thousands of dollars a month on leads, thousands. So
Yeah, and I mean, these days, I know up here in Minnesota, we're required to have some kind of a contract between us and the buyers before we can even open the door, right? My assumption is that that's kind of nationwide after the
yes.
NAR lawsuit.
Mhm.
Um, I think people are still trying to get used to that, right?
Mhm.
With the whole Zillow leads where they might call you and then they might just want you to open a door, but now they got to sign a contract. And I mean, I ran into that with someone where they just were not willing to sign the contract. And I was like, well, I can't help you without a contract. So as much as I'd like to provide you with professional services, it's not going to be possible. We can't do
Mhm.
this business. So like, I don't know if there's anyone else that's willing to do something. You got to get something in writing, right? And they
Correct.
have to sign something. So the hopes is that people understand that, and so in addition, in addition to all that, like since you're an icon producer, you've done a lot of work, you've been in this business for a while. Have you ever felt like you ever had burnout or any kind of difficulties or challenges where you might think about going back to your engineering job, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I want to just touch back on that point that you just made about the buyer agency contract thing, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
just so it's clear for any customers that are watching this, right? It is required by law nationwide now that before we can open a door for you, we do have to have an agreement in paper, right? That we're going to show you this house, and if you do end up buying this house, you will have to use us. You owe us a commission, right? Because it's and this is transparency that came about because of the commission lawsuit about the whole, oh, how do agents get paid, right? So this is provides complete transparency to both the customers and the agent that, hey, here's how much I charge, here's how I earn my commission, and if you use my services, I'm going to get paid this much, right? And how we get paid, right? Whether we ask the seller first, option one is we ask the seller, and if they refuse, then you, the buyer, you're on the hook, right? And so if you want to buy this house, you're on the hook. And if you don't want to pay for us, then that's fine. We'll go look at a different house, right? Um, so that's just something very clear that that came about recently within the past year. So just that it's not a shock, and we can't just open doors anymore because we can actually get fined as agents. We
Mhm.
can get fined by our MLS if we show a door, we open a house, and we don't have a contract in place. If they ever check on it, we don't have a contract written, right, between the buyer and us. Well, our license, we're gonna get fined, and we could risk losing our license. So that's not something that we as agents want to be doing. Um, and then the question was about burnout as an agent. Yeah, so that's very true. I mean, to when I was doing 18 transactions a month, I mean, I was already tired, right? But the thing is, you learn how to be more efficient in the business, and of course, that it's kind of like in our business. It's a lot like being a farmer, right? You're planting the seeds, right? The seeds of generating business, right? So you're planting seeds with potential clients, and you hope to keep watering it, right? To keep them giving them value, and whenever they're ready, they're gonna come reach out to you. You're gonna help them out, and then buy that house, and then you can you can harvest, right? But so you have to be continuously planning too, and doing everything at the same time, right? You can't just plant, and or just harvest. You can't just do one thing, right? You have to keep the pipeline full, right? We call it. Um, and we have to juggle multiple transactions at the same time. There were my best month, I closed seven transactions in 1 month, right? And I during that time when I did 45 transactions, I did have a transaction coordinator. She helped me a lot, right? She was helping me with filings, with just back office things, and that did help me to be able to get out there and work with more clients, right? Um, but even then, it does get very tiring, and it settles in. It becomes reality when the year ends, and then it resets back to zero, right? Because you do realize that these awards are they're annual, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so come January, everybody starts back at zero, right? So you have to hustle again. You have to redo it, repeat it again. So no matter how great you were last year, you have to do it again, right? And it constantly. I mean, even without the year, without the annual thing, every month in our business, right? Like we talked about earlier, we have bills to pay, right? We have fees to run our business, and if we're not making any income to cover those expenses, how can we earn, right? It costs us there's a there's expense factor in our business, right? To run our
yeah,
business,
yeah.
it's not free, right? um so there's a lot of things we need to cover at least in order to keep it going, right? To make it sustainable. So it does burn you out at the end of the day. There's a lot of time that you invest that you take away from your personal life, from your family. I remember I was always working, right? At the dinner table, always working, on vacation, always working. There's no such thing as vacation, right? Um,
Right, right.
that's how like, you can never get away from your phone. Every time it dings, you're like looking at it, right? And if you're
Absolutely.
not if you're not doing a transaction, you're lead genning, right? You're making reels, you're making social media posts, right? I would always be on Facebook, and my wife, my kids will be like, "Dude, you're not even working. You're just on Facebook." Like, dude, I am working. That's how I work, right?
That's so
So,
true. That's so true. I get the same thing, man. My kids, they'll be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Oh, you're on Facebook." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Like you guys don't understand. I'm putting up
mhm,
postings to educate people, to help
right,
people, and that's what we do." So,
mhm,
that's so true.
yeah,
Um I wanted to transition right to like we talked a lot about your specific career as being a realtor, but I'd like to transition over to like how do we also build wealth, right? Like that's like all this active income that we're doing, right? We're putting a lot of efforts into it. We're working really hard. We're spending like uh, basically day and night, right, in the business. And yeah, we could possibly burn out. Sometimes, like, I know some realtors where they're like, whenever I don't have business going on, i'm out of I'm on vacation, right? And even though they're on vacation, they're not really on vacation because they go out to, I don't know, like California, to the beaches, and they're working on their business, right? But they're actually, in California, so it's in a different space and allows them to do things differently. But in addition to being a realtor and doing your day to day, trying to generate revenue and everything, like, how do we build wealth? Like, if we can get business to come in and we're earning from our transactions, how do we grow that? And, like, how do we grow it to, because this is a wealth podcast, so we wanted some secrets from you as to how you can build more wealth over time, in this specific position.
right, right. So those are some great points. So number one that I heard is that you know, a lot of people think they're going to get into real estate for the flexibility. I can build my own schedule. I can work when I want. Shit, we're always working. Man, it doesn't stop.
But no, that's like me and you here, where it's
it
Sunday at seven
it does, yeah, yeah, it
Central
doesn't
Time.
stop.
What are
I
we
mean,
doing?
and then that you had mentioned earlier about going back to W2 world, going back to my engineering world. Dude, I would never want to go back. Like, I cannot sit in a cubicle, right? Even when I was there, I couldn't stand just watching the clock, right? Um, and the work's gonna be there tomorrow, right? So why would I want to hurry up and finish it? So um, but yeah, the whole can you build wealth as an agent, right? And that's something that that's something that's very important as a real estate agent when you are getting into the business. Even for me, when I got into the business as a brand new agent, I was more worried about just doing transactions, just getting a closing because I want to get paid so I can pay my bills, right? That was my number one priority, right? So that I can get money in my pocket and pay the bills. I was not worried about building wealth, right? You're looking at short term goals here, and you want to
Mhm.
have a customer, you want to get a contract, you know, you want to have a closing, right? And so then you just start chasing closings. So like, hey, how many more closings do I need, right? Um, so that I can pay my bills, and then you have a little bit of money set aside, right? um, because it is a roller coaster. Our income is like a roller coaster. You'll go months without getting paid a single check, right? It's tough, especially in the winter. If you want that comfortable W-2 life, like a merry-go-round, every 2 weeks you get a check to show up, then you should probably be a W-2, right? But
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
you want that income potential where you know, some months you could probably make 30, 50K, right? I've heard agents making 100K a month, right? From transactions. And of course, it all depends. I mean, how expensive a home you're selling, right? And what market you're in. Um, but it's definitely possible, right? You could definitely kill it 1 month, 2 month, and make 100K, right?
Mhm.
In
Mhm.
that quick, right? But it takes a lot of work, and it takes, a lot of experience and skill to get there, but it is possible, right? And so that's one of the very interesting things about the entrepreneur life is that, yeah, some months, you're going to be at negative or zero, right? But then you do have some months coming in where you're going to be like all the way up there, right? But you do have to
Mhm.
realize that you should set some of that aside for the rainy days, right? um and then, of course, the biggest thing, though, we're talking about transactions, chasing transactions, right? Um, Closings, things like that, right? It's always a constant. What do you call it? A rat wheel,
Yeah, yeah,
a rat race, right? You're
absolutely.
always
Yeah.
like chasing transactions, right? It's a constant treadmill, right? So as an agent, right, this is active work. The minute that you stop chasing transactions, the income stops coming in, right? That's the truth, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely.
and if you're not lead genning, right? If all of a sudden you have all these transactions, but then you stop lead genning, you don't have any new leads coming in, your pipeline's not filling up. Now you have a gap, right? So now you're like, oh crap, I got to go fill that gap, right? And then you start all over, right? So it's a repeated cycle. And even if you do become a really good agent and you become a top producer, things like that, you have a couple great years. That's awesome. 6 figures, right? Things like that. But you do have to do it again and again and again. And the minute that you stop, it's going to stop coming in because this is all active income. So the career transgression for a real estate agent, right? If you want to look at it from the business standpoint of a more experienced agent, right? You go from being an agent to maybe a team lead, right? So now that you have a team lead, you're building your own team, you have agents working under you. They're helping to spread the work, right? You know, you're the rainmaker, right, for the team, and you're dishing out the leads, right? So all of a sudden you're like the point guard, right? You're passing out the passes, and they go do the scoring, and you collect, right? You share the wins.
Yeah.
Um, the other aspect is that you get to a point where maybe if and a lot of agents in this business, they care so much about commission splits and transaction fees, things like that, and they always ask, oh, which brokerage has the best, blah blah blah. Well, if you're so concerned about it, go open up your own brokerage. Then you're going to be the boss. You get to decide what your split is, what your fees are, right? And that's what some agents end up doing. They end up being broker owners, right? Whether they're individual shop for just themselves, or they actually build up a small boutique brokerage, right? Or maybe they buy a franchise, right? They buy one of those franchises, local franchises, right? And then they lead their own office, right? Things like that. Um, so that's kind of where it goes. That's one way that you could build wealth as a real estate agent, right? And then but it is kind of a sad thought, really, that I do know. We know a bunch of agents who have been in the business 20 plus years, 20 plus years, killing it, right? Fantastic agents killing it. But at the end of the day, they're still just an agent, right?
Mhm, mhm.
The minute they stop working, they can't retire. That there's a saying in our business that agents don't retire, they expire. Right? I don't know if you heard
That's
that.
crazy.
But yeah, I mean, you get to the point where you don't want to work anymore, and essentially you just stop working, right? And and all these like top producer awards that you've gotten along the way, it's really sad at the end of the day because and when you work as an agent, you don't own majority of agents out there, they don't own their brokerage, right? Unless you're the broker
No.
owner, then you do, right?
Mhm.
But majority of the brokerage models out there, they do not give agents ownership, right? Especially boutique brokerages, things like that. Good luck to you, right? If that broker owner sells their business, you get nothing. You have to work for that new broker, or
Yep.
you have to go find a different one to work for, right? So it is kind of sad that there are a lot of like high producing agents out there that tell me, oh yeah, you know what, I'm thinking about retiring, but they got nothing after that, nothing to show for all they have, right?
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. So I met a loan officer, right? And she was working for I don't know, she's been doing the business for a really long time. She had a partner that was a realtor that had been doing it for I'd say 10 plus years. And that realtor was actually pretty good. She was putting in like 20 transactions a year. And so, this loan officer, like they partnered up, they did business together. And all of a sudden one day the realtor came back and was like, I can't do this anymore. And of course, the loan officer's like, What do you mean you can't do this anymore?" And of course, as loan officers, we need to be able to work with realtors in order to make our business work, right? That's one of the big aspects of how we do business. Outside of like refinancing or something like that, we have to be working, helping, training, like just marketing anything with our realtors to be able to produce a business together. And she's like, I can't do this anymore. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, she's like, well, in the meantime, I had bought, a couple businesses and they're running by themselves. And like, I don't have to be so involved, but as a realtor, I'm in it day in and day
Mhm.
out. And it's so hard. And I don't want to make a brokerage. And so eventually that realtor just retired and that loan officer was kind of out of a business partner. And that was really, really tough for her. And my thoughts are is that I'm in 100% agreement with you that if you're a realtor, and you have to continue to be the rainmaker, continue to grow your business, and it makes it really really difficult. But like I think that our model here at EXP, it gives us some opportunities, right? And so, do you mind expanding on some of that stuff and talk about the difference between possibly starting your own brokerage versus our model here at EXP?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the unique part about I guess how should I start this conversation really is um we should probably start talking about traditional
Hmm.
brokerage model,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, let's do that.
So at the traditional brokerage model, right? Whether it's a boutique, franchise owner, things like that, right? It's going to be some local owner that owns that brokerage, right? So they're going to be at the top, right? And then they go and they recruit agents to work for them, right? So those agents are going to be the ones out in the streets, walking their streets, working the streets, right? Getting those closings, right? And then the broker, of course, gets paid a cut, right? They're going to get paid either a transaction fee or a commission split or both, right? And so that's how the broker keeps lights on and all that stuff, right? Um, Now, if you were part of a franchise, right, it's kind of like the McDonald's thing. You got to pay a franchise fee to the brokers, right? The in order to have that name, in order to work for that brokerage, right? Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that transaction or that what is it called again? That fee, right?
Yeah,
The franchise fee. It
yeah.
continues forever. You every single transaction, it continues forever. You you have to pay that, right? And then of course, if you're a person, if you're a realtor, if you're a broker, and you're looking to open up a franchise, it's an expensive cost. you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars to open up a
Absolutely.
franchise,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Super expensive. And then of course that money, as you're a broker owner for a franchise, there's a regional owner that's going to look over your business, and you pay them a cut. They get a cut. And then of course the CEO of that, you know, that brokerage gets a cut. The investors of that, place get a cut. So all that money all flows up to them, right? So as an agent, you're at the bottom, right? You're at the bottom. And then, um, you know, imagine, because your broker owner is going to tell you, hey, don't you love working for us? Right? How cool are we? Don't you have friends and family who want to become agents or other
Yeah.
things like that, right? Why don't you go recruit them to help grow our family here? And I'll give you a cool, $200 referral fee one time, right? And so you get that one time referral fee to help your broker owner, whether they're boutique or franchise owner, to grow their brokerage, right? So you get that one time kickback, right? Every time that person that you brought in or the people you brought in, those agents, every time they get a closing, your broker's getting cut, right? You get nothing.
Yeah.
Um, so the how EXP is different, our model is different, is that you know, our we EXP rewards the agents, right? The agents who help grow the company, right? So instead of that one time collection fee, we always will get paid back it's called revenue share. You're gonna get a little bit of revenue share from every single agent that you brought on, right? That you helped the company grow. So what it really comes down to, a lot of, I'm not gonna beat around the bush, but a lot of people say, oh, that sounds like a pyramid, right? But really, it's not. I mean, and then you could also argue that everything's a pyramid. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. But obviously, we're here to, if you're helping grow the company is willing to give you back some of the profits, right? Some of the revenue that's coming in, and that's really where the alignment of interest is. Now that you, as an agent, you're helping the company to become better, the company's rewarding you for that. That's a win win situation, right? And the same thing, you have to really look at it. We're not doing anything different. We're just doing our normal real estate agent transactions, being a normal real estate agent, helping other agents to come in to partner with us. And the key here is that you need to help those agents to be successful, right? If you're not teaching those agents how to grow their business, to be successful, right, to be producers and eventually be a top producer, if they burn out, they leave, what's in it for you, right? There's nothing. There's no
Yeah.
benefit for you to go and bring them in to be a partner with you if you're not willing to help them, right? um, the power comes in when you're willing to help each other and grow the business together as partners and the company. Then everybody wins, right? And on top of that, essentially what it becomes is, as a brand new agent, you're getting a free mentor, right? Because the company is paying for your mentor to be there to mentor you, right? Especially if you have a very successful mentor who knows the business, understands the business, and can teach you and compress your timeline to jumpstart, right? So that you can hit the ground running and become really successful in the business.
Yeah, no, that's super good. I think something that one of the main reasons that, instead of opening up my own brokerage, right? Because I got friends that, have their own brokerages and they're like, Johnny, like you're good enough. You should just open up your own brokerage, right? Um, of course, I own a mortgage brokerage.
Mhm.
And so they're like, why don't you just go ahead and start another business and have a real estate brokerage as well? Well, um, owning a mortgage brokerage requires a ton of um, guidelines, like going over different guidelines, different policies, different procedures, um, following up with each employee, making sure you're sending out 1099s for every single loan officer that you have, to making sure that you're compliant with the states, making sure everything's regulated correctly, and then you're not doing anything wrong according to the federal guidelines, right? And my thoughts are is that the mortgage brokerage is enough for me already, right? And EXP gives me a leg up. When I joined EXP, like prior to being with EXP, I was with a red and white company, and their commission split wasn't 80/20 like at EXP, is more, a 30/70 split. In addition to that, we have technology fees that we have to pay for, and we have a bunch of different things. And if you're not with the team, then it's really hard for you to learn. You really just have to be on your own out there learning on your own. Of course, and they have proper trainings and stuff like that, which is really good. And same with EXP. But coming over to EXP, I would gladly pay 20% for them to just deal with the accounting process, right? The back end of making sure each one of my team members are getting the proper 1099, making sure that we have a legal team behind what the transactions that we're going through, as well as a broker that, instead of having to go out there and hire my own like broker, or hire someone to be the person where people go to for questions. I have that already. It's already established over at EXP. And so it's a plug and play. In addition to that, I don't have to get a license in every state that I go into, because ESP is already licensed in pretty much every state and a bunch of different countries around the
Mhm.
world. And my thoughts are is that that's huge, right? In addition to that, because we have this revenue share model, right? And then we have the co-sponsoring model now, that allows me to partner up with some of the most successful people in the Twin Cities here where I'm at, as well as across the United States, to be able to, collaborate and do business together. And I think that, like, there's nothing else like that out there. There's you can't, it's great. Could I work with some of my, brokerages that are broker friends that are out here, or real estate broker friends that are out here? Can we, come up with different ideas and solutions? Yes, absolutely. But could I do that with someone that has, 5,000 team members underneath them? I don't know. I don't know if I could do something like that, because as far as I'm aware, most of the franchises that are here, they don't have like 5,000 employees. They don't have the experience. They don't have the knowledge. And over at EXP, dude, like we sat down with Ian for lunch, right? I think
Mhm.
he's got like 3,000 team members underneath him.
Mhm.
It you get a whole different training process by just even sitting with lunch at lunch with him, right? I think that's huge. And so to be able to get connected with these great people, is the collaboration is just like phenomenal. And I think that's what I really love about
So,
EXP.
what was your question?
I mean, the question was,
I'm just kidding.
what's the
I'm just
difference
kidding.
between owning a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
brokerage,
Yeah,
versus.
yeah. I'm just kidding. So the the main thing is that so one of the questions you posed was, why don't we just open up our own brokerage, right? As agents,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the reason, like you just mentioned, it's a big pain in the butt, right?
Oh yeah,
To
absolutely, absolutely.
be the manager, right? All of a sudden you're a glorified, agent babysitter, right? That's really what it comes down to, right? I mean, um, not only that, there's a lot of liability, right? And you gotta do their payroll, you gotta do taxes, you're the IT person, or you can
Yeah.
hire all that stuff out too. But then, like you said, if all of a sudden you got all that figured out, and now you wanna expand to other states, good luck, right? You gotta go get licensed as a broker in all those states, you gotta do all the registration stuff that's
Yeah, you're
required.
rerunning it.
Yeah, you gotta have a managing broker in those states,
Yeah,
or you become that, and now you're a
yeah.
multiple managing broker in multiple states. How much time do you have in the day, dude? Right? Um,
Dude,
and
I
and
think the CEs alone will kill you.
oh, yeah, that's a whole whole 'nother thing. Yes,
Yeah,
continue
continuing
education.
education.
Um, but the other thing is, you're liable for everything the agents in your brokerage does, right?
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
if you don't have the time to spend with your agents, and they're out there, like, going rogue, doing their own things, it's your brokerage name on there.
Yep,
You're gonna be wrapped up in that lawsuit, right? So
absolutely.
good luck with that, right? So it's not something that basically, if you decide to do it, I mean, a lot of people do, and that's great. That's awesome if they're very
Yeah,
successful at
absolutely.
that. However, for me, I enjoy doing the real estate side. I want to actually do transactions, right? I don't want to be um full on, like, you know agent daycare, right? I don't want to do that, right? Um, right. So I want to still be able to produce and do that stuff, right? But a couple things that are different about EXP, like you mentioned that you were asking, well, EXP is one broker, one brokerage nationwide, right? So that what that means, what does that mean? Basically,
Worldwide, right? We're international
no,
too.
in the US, in the other countries, we're separate entities, right?
Oh, I
But
see. I see.
but I mean, um, but what it means in the US is that if I got licensed, I'm licensed in Wisconsin. If I wanted to work Minnesota, Florida, whatever, I just have to get licensed in that state, and I still belong to EXP. I only pay one brokerage fee, right? If you were a regular agent and you were part of one of these franchises or boutique stuff, if you go get a different license in a different state and your brokerage doesn't exist in that state, you have to go find a different brokerage to work for. That means you have to pay more fees, right? For
Mm-hmm.
that. And now you belong to two different brokerages. Now you gotta learn two different things, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so it's easier for that, right? And we actually so we can partner with agents in every single state, every single country that EXP is in. It doesn't matter, right? You don't have to be licensed there. We can partner with them, right? Because at the end of the day, we're helping each other to build our agent business, and that's what we're strategizing on. Because like, hey, we're here to help you grow your business, right? And how to get you business, right? All this stuff about how do I fill out forms? Which form do I use? Right? Hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? Right? EXP takes care of all that for us. All that back office stuff, all that training stuff, paperwork stuff. Our managing brokers in every single state, they take care of that stuff. Right? As long as your agent plugs in, your partner plugs into all those trainings that are available every week. There's 70 plus hours of live training, right? And then every week we have a state brokerage meeting, right? So as long as the agents plug in and they get updated on the latest rules for compliance, right, for their state, it's very important because I have number of partners in 5 different states now. They come to me still for questions, and I try to help them as best as I can, but I am not licensed in their state. I don't know the rules in their state, so I tell them how it is in my state and go do their research and see if they can find that similar document in their paperwork. But at the end of the day, I always tell them, hey, you should really talk to your broker, right? Talk to the managing broker
Mhm.
there, right? Because I don't want you to get in trouble because you followed my whatever I told you, right? So that's one of the biggest differences, and that's how EXP helps us. It's a vehicle, right? The way I look at it,
Mhm.
it's a vehicle to help us build our agent business, right? Um, it's already there. It helps us to basically drive our business beyond the distance that we normally want to drive. I mean, a lot of agents don't want to show homes more than an hour away, right? But by being plugged into such a large brokerage and EXPs in every single MLS, usually for most states, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
now you can partner with agents in every single MLS, right? Right. And all their states, you have referral business, you build up a whole network of referral business, right? So for example, right now we have about 28 agents in our network right now directly partner with me, and we're in 10 plus different markets, metro markets, in 5 different states, and we're continuing to grow. So and then of course we have, like you mentioned, other partners like Ian with 3,000 agents, right?
Mhm.
We need people in Texas. We have people like Daniel, right? And
Yeah.
we have commercial. We have EXP commercial, which is entirely separate brokerage, focusing specifically on commercial real estate, which is entirely different from residential real estate. And that's where our buddy Daniel, shout out to Daniel in Texas there in Dallas, their brokerage, they have, this his upline was the founder of EXP Commercial, right? His boss, James Wong. So, if we ever need any commercial real estate experts, we have that network, we have the resource, right? And that's kind of the biggest thing that separates EXP from all the other models out there. And there's a lot of copycats, right? So today there's a lot of copycats that have copied EXP's model, but
Yeah.
everybody's saying they're the fastest growing, right? They're the newest brokerage on the street, and they're going to catch up and they're going to beat EXP, blah blah blah. We have 88,000 agents, right? So the next closest is like 25,000, right? And
Yeah.
the real difference at the end of the day is the people, right? The people that you associate yourself with, the people that you surround yourself with, the people that are in your network, the people who are helping you to grow your business and helping you to level up, right? And that's really what we have here, right? We have phenomenal people like Jaime, who taught us how to do YouTube and social media and how to do all that, right? We have the Daniel that we mentioned, right? So we have so much wealth of networks, right? We got our awesome partner up in Vancouver, right? The
Yeah.
boss,
Yeah.
the beast, right? John Sai, right? And
Yeah.
so that guy did 149 transactions solo as an agent. Guy's an animal.
Yeah.
In
Then
one
we have
year.
Tom. Tom's on the
Tom
East Coast,
Strong.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tom. Man, Tom
Yeah.
is amazing. Tom's got 2,000 agents, I think, partners, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
phenomenal, phenomenal. So it's really that's kind of the most value that I would say as an agent, if you're looking at other brokerages to help you. It Don't be so worried about commission splits, transaction fees, things like that. It really comes down to, are the people there that you want to grow to, that you want to do? Are there people who you can, who can be your mentor, right? To help you to grow your business the way you want it to. And the best thing about at EXP that, why we don't have our own brokerage, it's easy because EXP allows us to build our own brokerage under EXP.
Mhm.
And that's what we're
Absolutely.
doing, right? And at the traditional real estate model, I mean, if your agent, right, if you own your own brokerage, you're mentoring these agents, you're pouring into them, right? They become really good. And guess what? One day they're either going to ask you for ownership of that brokerage. And if you don't want to share, you don't want to give away part of your money, right? You want to be a broker owner and you don't want to share that money back to your agent that's bringing in the money for your brokerage. Guess what? That agent's leaving, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
They're going to go build up their own brokerage. They're going to be your competitor, right? But that's not a problem in EXP because we want that. We want them to be super successful. We want to pour into our agents so they become better than us, right? So
Absolutely.
they can duplicate what we're doing. They see that, oh, dang, I see what you're doing. I
Yeah.
want in, right? I want to do that,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
so when they realize that damn, all right, I'm gonna copy, sign me up, help me out, right? And we help grow each other's business, and that's what we do. So
Yeah. So I'd like to, I mean, we're running up on the hour, but I'd like to ask, like above, having a brokerage, being a realtor, there's got to be more, right? To building wealth. We can also get into, investing, right? And so
yeah.
what are a few things that you're invested in, and what do you think is, might be the next best thing?
Yeah. So, well, let me one other thing we forgot to talk about at EXP Realty. We're one of the few brokerages that reward the agents with stock, right? So EXP is publicly traded. Agents can earn stock through everyday normal real estate agent activities. Like your first closing of the year, you get $200. Every single agent that you bring on that you partner with, you get $400 in stock. Every time that you cap, right? So there's at EXP, there's an opportunity cap, meaning you no longer pay that 20% split, right? So you just pay $250 moving forward for the calendar year, and you also get $400 in stock, right? And then
Mhm.
if you are able to achieve Icon, which after you cap, you do 20 more transactions, you will get back $16,000 in stock, which that $16,000 equals the cap, right? So essentially, if you believe in yourself as an agent and you can be a top producer at EXP, you're you're pretty much working, you're at EXP, you're not paying anything. They're giving you all the money. You're going to earn stock, and then you're going to earn revenue share if you decide to participate in that. That's optional. You don't even have to do revenue share, right? But honestly, at the end, I was at UWM last week, and UWM, United Wholesale Training, a mortgage, for a training. And I was riding the
Mhm.
shuttle with Nexa, and there was another real estate agent sitting behind me. And, um, you know, um, she was at C21. I was kind of eavesdropping. I was just listening. Her loan officer, right? Her next loan officer, and she was like, you know what? Right now, I'm happy with where I'm at Century 21, but I think maybe later, um, maybe later in my career, I'm gonna switch over to EXP because I want to build that revenue share. I want to have that passive income. And I'm just sitting there thinking, dude, she's missing out. Why
Yeah.
can't you do both? Do both now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you can do both now, right? And I know C21. I know their model. They don't have rev share, right? And they pay pretty much the same split we do, right? They don't have stocks, right? Why stay at a company where you're not getting the benefits, right? You retire at something like C21, put in 10 years for it, and you leave or you retire, you go to a different brokerage, you got nothing. You could have been
Mhm.
accumulating stock. You could have been building your rev share partnerships, right? So it's crazy. Like why would you wait? Right. And especially if she's talking to somebody from Nexa, where Nexa's loan officer mortgage brokerage model is built on the EXP model, right? They have the rev
Yeah.
share, they have all that.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. But then back to your question about other ways that real estate agents can build wealth, right? Besides the normal real estate agent stuff. I mean, we work in real estate, guys. If you're not a real estate investor, you are missing out on a huge opportunity, right? If you're not having passive income, quote unquote passive, through rentals, right? Long-term rentals or flips. There's actually a lot of real estate agents that do flips, right?
Yeah.
Because
There is.
they're the ones who are generating the leads, right? You generate the lead as an agent, right? And if it's an ugly house and it's not something, if it's a fixer upper, obviously, right? And it's not something that most people would buy on the market. Now you have the option. If you're a real estate agent who understands investing, you can propose to the seller, hey seller, here's what I can offer you. I can either find you an investor who's going to buy cash quick, right? No inspection, no nothing, no nonsense. We'll close in 2 weeks. We'll get you out of here. You won't have to lift a finger, right? And of course, you're paying them a fair value for what that condition is. You're not trying to rob them of equity, stuff like that, right? But and they know their house isn't. Nobody's going to pay them market value for the house in that condition, right? And so they might take it. And then if you're a realtor who understands flipping and all that, you have contractors in your network, right? Or maybe you are a contractor, I don't know. But you put in the money, you put in the sweat equity, and you put that thing back on the market, right? You put the work in, you put it back on the market, you know now. So flipping, rentals, short-term rentals, right? I myself, I do rentals. I have rentals. I have another business. I have a laundromat. um, I have short-term rentals. I have two short-term rentals right now, so Airbnbs, right? And so um, I'm quite involved in a lot of different things. And it's not just being a real estate agent, but I'm also a loan officer, right? So one of the other things I've added on recently, um, which is phenomenal. And we'll talk about that next week. Speaking of, on
Yeah.
how loan
Let's do
officers
that.
make money, right? And how they
Yep.
build their wealth. So we'll give you the inside scoop on that. But yeah, that's pretty much the number of different ways that you can build wealth as a real estate agent.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I myself, I do investing. I actually just put in an offer on a short-term rental.
Really?
Not yeah, Airbnb. So we'll see if it
Nice.
goes through. We'll see
Is that
if
the
it
one
goes
you're telling
through.
me about in Minnesota?
Yeah. It's here
Okay,
in the Twin
okay.
Cities, and so
All right, all
the
right.
numbers look pretty good. I sent it out to my investors, and
Mm,
one saw that the numbers were good, but she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pass. I kind of want a long term one where I'm not as involved." And the other one hasn't reached back out to me yet, so we'll see what happens. But I was like, you know what, it's a good deal, so I might as well just throw the offer out there and see what it is, and
okay,
whether I can get it or not. And the seller
nice.
told me that they'll get back to me. But last four questions that we always ask on our podcast, right?
Yeah.
What is the ninja skill that is your absolute best skill?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is a actual skill or not, but I would say for me is actually, just to be like kind of OCD obsessive, right? um, and that's, people who know me, they know that when I do something and it's something important to me, I get obsessed about it, right? That's all I think about, right? And
Nice,
that's all I
nice.
work on. And whether it is challenging, whether I fail or not, I just want to give it my all. And if I do fail, then hey, you know what? I gave it my all, so there's no regrets. So
Awesome, awesome. So, how do you keep it sharp?
Yeah. So, I how do I keep my skills sharp and learn new things? Well, I used to always be so tired of school, right? And right, as growing up, right,
I
we're in
think
school
that's
for 12
everyone, right?
we're in school for 12 years, and then we're just counting down the years, and then we go to college, right? I went to college. I was counting down the years in college. I had to do 5 years, so I was on a 5-year plan as an engineer because I messed up my freshman year. Had too much fun at, Madison, right? So, being, yeah, Madison #1 party school, so, um,
Nice.
yeah, so, after that whole experience, I thought I would never go back to school, which I've never gone back to school, but one thing that I've learned along the way, though, being in this business is that we always have to keep learning, right? There's always new things to learn, new skills to learn. And if we're not learning and we're not learning to add to our business, then our business is dying, right? And one of the things that I learned at EXP really when I came over here um, is you got to show up, right? You got to be willing to put yourself out there, get into the rooms where you're not the smartest, where you're not the best, right? Where you might feel like you don't belong, right? Like, what are you doing here, right? You're in rooms with agents who are selling 100 homes a year, right? Um, so you have to be willing to put yourself in those awkward positions in those rooms and invite your pull up your own seat to the table because nobody's really going to invite you, right? Um,
Right, right.
and when you see what other people are doing and what's possible, right? Because I thought I was bad when I was selling 10 homes a year. I was like, damn, I'm good. And then see somebody else, oh, they're doing 20. Oh, wait, that other
Mhm.
agent's doing 50 a year. Like, wow. And then I saw John, like, damn, 150 a year. Holy
Right, it's
yeah,
crazy.
and so you're like, whoa, what's really possible here, right? And so when you see people like that stretch what you think is your normal, makes you think bigger, right? And if they can do it, why can't you, right? And so
So true.
I go to a lot of conferences, you know that. We go to conferences a lot together.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, just watching podcasts or listening to podcasts, reading books, things like that. So that's really how I keep learning.
Awesome, awesome. So, um, what book has transformed your mind in your business?
Um, hmm. I mean, the go-to has always been Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? That was one of the first books that got me thinking about the real estate path and the whole, you know, um, the four quadrants, right? The ESBI, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, you
Cash
know,
flow quadrant, I think is what it's
cash
called.
flow quadrant. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And so, it really challenges you to think differently about your career and what you're doing, right? And so, yeah, I mean, definitely have to say that's probably one of the most transformational books that I've read and put me on the path I'm on now. So,
awesome. And then, what's a must-try spot, that you eat at in your city?
yeah. So, let's see. Where do I go? Well, I've had, the this restaurant's kind of a pop-up. It doesn't really come out. They recently had a new spot they claimed in a food truck place. Um,
Okay,
but they used to have a real restaurant, but it's far away. It was like an hour away. But now they're in Milwaukee.
okay.
Um, so I would definitely give them a try. It's called Sap Sap. It's a Lao restaurant. They
Mm,
got fire food, man. The chicken sandwich is crazy. It's called it's like a chicken banh mi. I don't know. It's a massive sandwich, but all their food is great. I had their skirt steak and all that stuff. So fantastic chef. I got to go back soon. So next time.
sweet, sweet. Well, I think that wraps it up for this episode of Ninja Wealth Exchange, our podcast number 2. That's all the time we have. So, if you found value in this, please hit the subscribe button. Feel free to share this video with your friends, as well as hit the like button, hit the bell button, get it so that we're on your schedule. We're here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Let's ninja level up, right, on all your strategies, and let's sharpen every skill that you have so that you can stack up on your wealth as well as make your ninja moves. So until next time, we'll see you again.